Welcome to another episode of Glaze Review. For those of you who are new or unfamiliar, this is the show where I take bottles of glaze off of the shelves and I test them for you on a bunch of different clays with a bunch of different combinations. We do a bunch of combinations with the gambit of glazes that I've made myself. We test it on white clay, we test it on porcelain, and on brown clay as well most of the time. Today we are testing PC-53. I would like it to focus, please. Today we are testing PC-53 Ancient Jasper from the Potter's Choice line from Amaco. Thank you, by the way, Amaco, for giving us this glaze. They are a sponsor of today's video, and they are the ones who allowed us to test these glazes. Before I started making my own glazes, I was heavily invested in bottled glazes, specifically from Amaco and Coyote, and for quite some time, Ancient Jasper was one of my favorites. I only recently stopped buying Ancient Jasper myself because I found a glaze that was close enough to it that I could make myself, but I still really enjoy this glaze, and it has fantastic texture. Some glazes you get, the picture on the bottle doesn't really represent the glaze, but let's see how this does today because as I remember, this was pretty close to what it says on the bottle. So today we're going to be testing this Ancient Jasper in a cone 6 oxidation atmosphere, and I'm really interested to see what it would look like on a textured surface such as chattering on some porcelain clay body. Of course, we always test it on this channel on white and brown clay, usually at cone 5 or 6. They're fairly close together, but I don't usually do it on a chattered or textured surface like this. But I'm really interested to see this because I think I remember this looking super interesting on a textured surface. So we're going to make a couple of sets of bowls actually that I have here because I have some duplicates ready for the online store just in case they come out really tasty and people want to buy them. Okay, so our 4 bowls over there are glazed. Those 2 are brown clay, they're redstone clay, and those 2 over there are porcelain clay. That's Nara porcelain. But it should do fine for a B-mix substitute or a white clay in general. What I did off screen is that I glazed these 2 as well with the same glaze that I glazed those 4 bowls over there, the Ancient Jasper. I'm going to mix this one with my Lumos, and I'm going to mix this one over here with June Perry's pink. The reason I'm doing these 2 glazes is because the high majority of my glazes are really dark and texture based, but my June Perry's pink is very light and pink, and my Lumos is a very iridescent white, and it has a bunch of lithium in it, which should react very well with this cup. So we're going to mix those 2 glazes with these 2 cups right here, and we're going to see how they come out just as a little bonus test.
Checkmate.
No, don't do it!
What did I tell you about hiding in the kiln? You know, one day I'm gonna turn it on. Come on, we got a video to do. Okay, so let's look at both of these at the same exact time. Over here on the left is the white test style, or the white bowls, and over here on the right are the brown test styles, or the brown bowls for our results. The brown bowls actually came out pretty nice. Now, for some strange reason, my brown bowls blistered a little bit, but that has nothing to do with the actual glaze itself, because the actual glaze of Ancient Jasper itself looks really good. I mean, look at that. This is a really thick coat of the stuff on the inside. You can especially see in the middle, this glaze, especially when it's extremely thick, does some really nice, cool black and red stripes. And the outside doesn't look too bad either. And as usual, I give you guys a second test out just because sometimes I like to think that if something comes out one way on one product and it comes out another way on another product, well, that's too much variation. But if I get the same exact result on the same exact clay body with the same exact product, well, that at least gives me some form of consistency. So I can safely say that this is the way the glaze is going to come out if you try it on your brown clay as well. The one constant that I notice in between these two bowls, specifically on the brown clay, is that the thicker the glaze is, it seems to produce a little bit more red the thicker it is. For example, on the outside of this bowl, I held the tongs upside down and then poured the glaze on as I usually do. So you can see the thicker parts here are super red, but as the glaze rolled down the body, or up the bowl rather, you can see it got this kind of really dark blue or dark gray kind of texture and color, and that's where it seems to be a little bit thinner. I can also feel the top of the bowl a tiny bit here, and it's much thicker glaze body than it is here. So I say that's the only one consistent thing I'm noticing with these two bowls. It also did the same exact thing over here, where you can see that it's really, really dark over here, but it turns like a weird color here, and then it gets really dark gray or black right here. Like the thicker that you put the glaze on, like you get this application versus this application, you know what I mean? Now this was just redstone clay, but the white clay turned out a lot better. I think for those of you who are buying this glaze specifically for the red color, you're really gonna wanna use it on a white clay body, simply because I got a lot more red and a lot better results on this white clay body.
Checkmate.
And you can really see the difference in between the white clay body and the brown clay body, right? Like this is really, really dark and looks like, you know, like bloodstone, while this one is really, really red. And it kind of looks like those like Chinese New Year's holiday lanterns, like this red with a little bit of a gold brim right here. It looks really nice. The awesome thing, and the thing that I didn't think was going to happen at all, is if you put it on a textured surface, like this bowl or this bowl right here, both of them actually, are chattered, it looks really good. It almost has the same color variation as the brown clay body. The only difference is that you really get to see it play inside of those textures. And again, it's not like I did it on this one product and I got very lucky. I did it on another chattered product over here and got the same exact result. This is the second bowl, and the glaze is pretty much identical to what I just showed you. It pretty much looks just about the same on the inside and on the outside with the chattered surface. So I always like to drive that point home because a lot of people sometimes get really lucky with a lot of their textures and a lot of their glaze tests, but I basically did the same thing twice in the same atmosphere with the same kiln. This to me not only proves that it's a stable glaze, but it also proves to me that I can get the same results with the same glaze over and over again. Another thing that I'm noticing that's different from a lot of the other Celadon line glazes from Amaco is that if you put it in a texture, it looks really nice, right? It has this really nice melt to it. It plays inside those textures very nicely. But if you put it on anything flat, like up here on the rim, it almost drastically changes the color. This right here is a line, and that line has really made that red. And then if you see it on a flat surface, well, it pretty much takes into its own. It's a little bit tempting because I really want to keep these, but I can't, so I have to put them on the online store. I do. These are probably going to go away because there's a lot of bloating in these, but I'm most likely going to put these two in the online store. So this is how the test out comes out on white clay and on brown clay. But stay tuned because I did put it on a bunch of other glazes as well, and we're going to see how those mix too. This here is my Lumos with Ancient Jasper put on top. I will admit, by this time my Ancient Jasper was a tiny bit watered down because it was super thick, but it still makes these really nice streaks with the Lumos coming out very nice and white. The outside is kind of normal. Like, getting drips like this is kind of normal because you can just put an overage of glaze on the top and make sure it doesn't run down to the bottom, and that's normal. Everybody can do drips. But when you look on the inside, that's what I'm interested in. You can actually see a little bit more of it on the handle right here. The handle really captures that kind of molding of the Lumos and the ancient Jasper. It's really nice. I'm pretty glad to see, especially because my Lumos is so melty, that my Lumos and ancient Jasper get along together. But there are some glazes that the ancient Jasper doesn't get along with. For example, I had this Juniperi's pink and ancient Jasper, and it pretty much did nothing. The pink kept on light pink, or light white rather, and then it kind of just like turned the rest of the mug brown anywhere the glaze was at. I thought I was being super inventive. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna put a cup like this, and I'm gonna get my bottle, and I'm just gonna like... And none of that happened at all. Now I pretty much just have a pink mug. Don't get me wrong, it looks good. It's not a bad mug. It's no interesting colors happened on here like they happened on here. You know what I mean? I feel like most people would pick this mug over this mug any day of the week. So it didn't work too well with my Juniperi's pink at all. It did, however, work a little bit well in reverse. So this right here is Juniperi's pink, and I put the glaze right over it, right? I dipped it the whole thing in Juniperi's pink first, and then put the glaze on top of it. This cup over here, however, is with ancient Jasper on first, and then Juniperi's pink on top. So these are pretty much the same exact thing in reverse, and it didn't really like this either. And it didn't really like this either. This and this are pretty much the same mug in a different style. It kind of just turned brown on my Juniperi's pink. I don't know why it didn't like it. I thought a very light pink along with this kind of really dark crimson brown would look really well together, but it kind of made something that looks a little bit like Albany slip brown, and it doesn't look that good. So Juniperi's pink is a no-go for me in this glaze. I want to show you guys one more thing before we get going. You remember that bowl that I showed you earlier with the ancient Jasper on it? This one here, it's probably one of my favorite test styles that I've ever gotten with ancient Jasper. It looks red, it promises what comes on the bottle. Heck, it actually looks a little bit better than what it promises on the bottle. The test style on the bottle looks like this. The test style on the bottle looks like this, where it has a mix of this reddish, kind of grayish dark spots here, but this on the inside is pretty much all money right here, right? This is gorgeous. But then you turn it around and you also get the color on the bottle as well. I like this. I love when companies do this because it shows that they're not trying to show you their best foot forward. They're trying to show you their most consistent thing they got out of the kiln. They're basically not lying to you, and I like that a lot. Far too many bottles have I bought where they don't represent their color correctly, and they just like, oh, this is totally what it's gonna turn out to be, and then you actually use it as the instructions say, and it's not how it looks at all. I'm looking at you, other glaze companies. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. Hopefully these glaze reviews are helping you guys out a little bit. I try it on a bunch of different clays. I mix them with a bunch of my different glazes. This way you guys can see what's going on with other stuff. It's really sad to get like a glaze and then mix it with other glazes you have and they just don't play with anything at all. But at least this plays with some stuff, and that's what I really like about it. So thank you guys for watching today. Ancient Jasper was one of those glazes that I always grabbed from the shelf whenever I needed a good red. It was like Firebrick Red and this from Amaco were the only two that I ever really messed with. Everything else didn't really turn out as consistent as the other stuff. But as you can see in this video, like, I basically got two of the same product on my first try. Thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. If you'd like to see any of my actual artwork, the links are always down below for your beautiful Potter eyes to see. We have the website where you can buy stuff. We have the Facebook and Instagram so you can keep up with all my artwork. And now, always linked down below from this point on, we have the brand new podcast that me and Lindsay M. Dillon are doing. I kind of figured you guys got tired of like one video a week, unless you're like actually subscribed. So, you know, I figured we give you a little something else to keep your ears all beautiful and shiny with little Potter tips. Dirty Potters in your ear. I'm sorry, that was gross, but also kind of true. Hopefully you guys have yourselves a fantastic day, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week. The ice cream truck man has to leave. The ice cream guy kept coming by while I was recording and making like that weird doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo noise. So I finally went out there and bought one and he went away. Modern problems, modern solutions.